let's go. Who's going to start first? All right, Catherine, there you go.
Hello, everybody. Thank you guys in advance for your time and attention. My name is Catherine Davis.
My name is Jessica Rosales.
And we are excited to introduce a new program we have developed called GHJ Know and Grow. So just to briefly go through the table of contents of what we'll be talking about today, we'll be first giving a brief introduction of the program, and then we'll be talking about why the community needs a program like this. We'll then give you an overview of the workshop, and then we'll dive down into the anticipated benefits that this program will bring. Then Jessica will give a more in-depth breakdown of the resource and logistics of how we'll get this program up and off the ground. She'll then talk about how we will measure the success of the program and how we will promote it. We'll talk about obstacles that we expect to come across and how we'll overcome those obstacles, and then I will wrap up with the conclusion. So before I begin, I just want to start off by asking a question, and auditors that are here in office, please feel free to participate as well, and everybody online, please feel free to participate as well. How many of us during tax season have had family members or friends come to us completely lost and confused and needing help with their tax returns? How many of us with a show of hands, please? Yes. I'm sure a lot of us have had this experience. Taxes are something almost everybody has to experience in life, but not everyone is really taught how to do it. We're all sat down and we're taught in school how to do English and geometry, but nobody sits us down and says, hey, here's how to read a 1040. Here's how to know what credits apply to you. There's a difference between adjusted gross income and taxable income, and here it is. According to the Tax Crisis Institute, only 12% of schools in the United States teach personal finance. And that's not just a number. That's a prominent knowledge statistic that leaves people confused, unprepared, and vulnerable to missed opportunities. Missed opportunities to qualify for benefits, avoid penalties, save for the future, or simply just feel in control of their financials. When it gets to that point, it's not just about the numbers. It's about the peace and mind that comes from truly understanding them. And that's why we have developed GHJ Know and Grow, a free tax education program designed to empower the community through clear and simple tax education. Some of the topics that we'll be covering in these classes are things like nonprofit compliance and small business reporting. And these classes will be taught right here in our LA office during the month of May. Now we'll talk more deeply about this program deeper into the presentation, but the heart of Know and Grow is about bridging critical knowledge gaps so people aren't just getting through tax season, but they're actually understanding what they're doing. Because the truth is, tax education isn't just a nice to have, nice to know. It's a necessity for anyone who's trying to build anything meaningful, whether that be a business, a career, a mission, anything. Too often, the people who are shaping our future are doing it without the financial tools they need and truly deserve. And there's more to it than just personal responsibility. There are a lot of real barriers that get in the way of people accessing tax education. Let's dive deeper into some of those barriers. So like I talked about earlier, only 12% of schools in the United States teach personal finance. And when it comes to tax education specifically, that number goes far and fewer. So why is that? Well, the National Financial Educators Council conducted a research study to kind of investigate why that is, and they came across a couple of different reasons. The main reason is because tax returns are very individualized. I am in school and I work, so I'm getting a W-2 and a 1098-T. However, Jessica, she's not working right now, but she is getting unemployment income, so she's getting a 1099-G. But she does have a house. I love that for you, Jessica. So she's getting a 1098. However, we have two completely different tax pictures, and everything from the type of income you're earning, your dependent status, or your filing status complicates and makes up your tax picture, and that can get really complicated for education leaders to make a one-size-fits-all curriculum to teach taxes from. Another reason is because the tax code changes too frequently for education to keep up with. From 2017, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, fast forward to now, 2025, with the One Big Beautiful Bill, that's about less than 10 years from tax law changes. Now, that may seem like a long time for you and me, but for education leaders, that is not a long time and they don't have the resources to update, train, and just keep up to date with federal and state tax law changes. The research study also found that some educators don't even believe that they should teach taxes in schools because that they believe the IRS supplements enough information to the public on taxes. But I'm sure we've all been familiar with the resources that the IRS has supplements and know that it's filled with a lot of technical vocabulary that the average person isn't really just gonna understand. So what happens? Many high school students and college students leave school without experiencing one of the fundamental aspects of life. And proper education isn't the only barrier that's getting in the way. Excuse me. Might have some technical difficulties, sorry. Sorry guys, bear with me. Okay, we're back. Corporate systematic manipulation of that very lack of education plays a major factor as well. Tax filing software companies like Intuit, the creator of TurboTax, have unethically monopolized the tax filing system for years through their aggressive lobbying practices and deceptive marketing tactics. In the late 1990s, the IRS was considering creating their own government-funded free filing service in an effort to modernize the tax filing system and make it simpler for people to pay their taxes from. But when Intuit got wind of this, they acted swiftly to protect their business interests. And in 2003, they spearheaded a public-private partnership with 17 other tax prep firms, some of which are listed on the screen, like H&R Block, Free Tax USA, and Tax Act, to create the Free File Alliance. The Free File Alliance was a partnership between the IRS and these tax prep firms, and they agreed to provide free tax services to 60% of low to moderate income taxpayers in exchange for the IRS not creating their own system. Now, on the surface, this seemed like a really big win for taxpayers. They're getting free tax filing. But in reality, this is just another way for Intuit to block government alternatives, control access to free services, and to control their dominance in the market space. As time went on, their deception increased. Between 2016 and 2018, Intuit deliberately de-indexed their free file version from Google search results, making it nearly impossible for people to find unless they truly knew where to look on their website. And on top of that, they started implementing dark patterns into their website, which are manipulative design features that steer people directly towards paid versions of products, even if they don't need those products, and sometimes they don't even know that they're paying for those products. An audit revealed that 14 million taxpayers were wrongly charged, which resulted in $1 billion of revenue for Intuit. This disproportionately affected first-time filers, gig workers, students, and low-income taxpayers the most, the very people who would benefit the most from a free filing system. In 2022, just recently, the FTC took matters into their own hands and filed a lawsuit against Intuit for their deceptive marketing practices. And just this last year, 2024, Intuit settled that case and had to pay $141 million in restitution and were barred from advertising products as free unless they truly were. But even with the consequences, the damage has already been done. Millions of taxpayers are facing a system that is overly complicated and expensive, not because it has to be that way, but because tax filing systems have fought aggressively to keep it that way. But taxpayers are facing other barriers as well. Technology limitations is a really big one nowadays. A lot of people don't have access to technology or can't afford it or don't have reliable internet to access online tax education resources. And even if they do, some people like senior citizens aren't as digitally literate to fully engage with that content. Language barriers are another barrier that can complicate things. Like I talked about earlier, a lot of the IRS provided resources are in English and in complicated vocabulary. So when translations are done, they're sometimes incorrect or poorly done. Misinformation and lack of awareness is a really big one that's getting popular nowadays. I'm sure we've all come across the social media accountants who are giving false advice and misleading services that can get people into a lot of trouble financially and can even subject them to legal trouble. Psychological and emotional barriers like fear and anxiety of making a mistake or not knowing enough about taxes is another barrier as well that gets in the way of people accessing tax education. And finally, cultural mistrust, specifically in communities of color that have a history of experiencing systematic harm, are another barrier that gets in the way of people accessing tax education. Together, all these barriers don't just create a system where tax education isn't just inaccessible, it's actively out of reach for the people who need it the most. And that's why we have came up with the solution of GHJ, Know and Grow. So let's talk more deeper about this program. This program will be entirely volunteer run and ideally spearheaded and facilitated by the leaders of the GHJ Foundation. It will take place right here in our LA office, but will also be available online as we have associates and managers all over the nation and people all over the nation who I'm sure would love to participate. They would take place during the last 3 weekends of the month of May. And we chose that time because it's a little after busy season has died down, but right before firm-wide, making it an ideal time for the staff to engage meaningfully. Some of the topics that we'll be covering are topics that aren't really accessible online and are tailored towards a specific group, specific underserved group in the community. If Jessica will be so kind, we do have some sample marketing flyers that we'll be passing around just to get you guys engaged and get an idea of what the program is. And just to go through the course, listing and the weekends, the first weekend is called Nonprofit Essentials. And this weekend would be good for any nonprofit leaders, board members, or anybody who's trying to get into the nonprofit world or get their feet wet into the world. And some of the things we'll be talking about are grant reporting requirements and charitable contribution eligibility guidelines. The next weekend is called Small Business First Steps. And this is good for any aspiring entrepreneurs or any current entrepreneurs of SMLs or partnerships. And some of the topics that we'll be discussing in that class are how to properly register your business with the Secretary of State and to understand what kind of tax obligations you're expected to come across, like self-employment tax. The final weekend is called 1040 Basics. This class will be marketed and will be for the broader community, but will be specifically marketed at universities. I'll let Jessica talk deeper about that at the promotion aspect of the presentation. But some of the topics we'll be covering in that class are how to read and understand the 1040 and how to find credits that will apply to you specifically. By giving these classes in a welcoming space and led by our professional staff, we're trying to give people the tools to make better decisions and truly succeed. And in doing so, the program brings a lot of benefits to the community as a whole. I think the first and most obvious benefit is that it brings the opportunity to foster financial empowerment. When people actually learn and understand how to do their taxes, they are learning to make better informed decisions, which in turn will help them have more tangible benefits like saving real money. And the hope is that as they become more empowered, they will develop long-term financial literacy skills that will last them far beyond just one class or one tax season that they attend. The program would also help to reduce tax preparation costs, which in turn will protect people from predatory practices from tax filing software companies like I described earlier from Intuit. For nonprofits and entrepreneurs specifically, the program will have a more practical benefit of giving them guidance on their compliance services and how to avoid costly mistakes. And if a nonprofit leader or a business owner wanted more advanced help, they felt like they can't do their return on their own. Another benefit to the program is that they would already have a direct connection to GHJ for a seamless transition into our departments for compliance services. But in my opinion, I think the most important benefit of this program is that it would work to reduce the fear and anxiety that a lot of people associate around taxes and would replace that fear and anxiety with knowledge and confidence. I will pass it off to Jessica so she can tell you all more about the benefits this program could bring to the firm.
Thank you, Catherine. So I'll start off by